if you watch Dr. Strangelove, they're always talking about gaps, like the peace gap, and they're like really funny gaps they're talking about between us and the Soviets. So our U-2 spy plane was flying over the Soviet Union. What they found was that we thought the missile gap was real. Well, the missile gap was real, except it wasn't what we thought. We had way more stuff than they had that worked. They had tons of missiles, but theirs was all. Many of them didn't work. Many of them were crappy. And what we found out, that we might have had a superiority of 100-to-1 missiles. 100-to-1 superiority. If not that much, then huge superiority. Now, did they have stuff? Yeah, but it didn't all work. And it wasn't all advanced. Some of it was. But here's the worst part. And the greatest part about this Cold War. We couldn't tell anybody about it. How do you convince the public to stop being so crazy on the missile gap? Tell them that we know. Well, how would you have to tell them that we know that there's not a missile gap? Admit that we were spying on them. That's bad enough. The Soviets knew we were spying on them. They knew that the U-2 spy plane was up in the air. They just didn't have the technology to bring it down. So they couldn't tell their people, America's evil, they're spying on us. Because they would have to admit that our technology was so much better than theirs. That they know that we're spying and they're so helpless they can't even do anything about it. So what that means is, we knew the Soviets' stuff wasn't very good. The Soviets knew that we knew their stuff wasn't very good, and we knew the Soviets knew. But no one could say anything, because it was all clandestine. We can't admit that we're spying on the Soviets, and they can't admit that they know because it'd be an embarrassment to them. So what did we keep doing? What did our companies keep doing? Making more missiles and more technology. Yes?
Why should we admit we were spying on them for?
Because then you have to talk about your technology. You have to talk about how you're doing it. The number one rule in spying is don't tell people. Right?
That's not moral to spy on people in America.
Everyone spies. We spy on our allies. Our allies spy on us. We have found, it was the New York Times and Washington Post the other day, about how the biggest spying is not necessarily just on a government, although it's a big one, is that companies, or that governments are spying on our companies through computer technology to try to get some of their ideas, like China with trying to find our technology and then rip it off, which they do a lot. You know who else does that? England. England and us are BFFs. They're spying on us. Do we spy on England?
Sure.
Absolutely. We spy on everybody. We need to know what's going on. Now, we spy on other people. We spy on, Al-Qaeda more. I hope. But this happened. And you can't say, ha ha ha, we're spying on you. Here's how we're doing it. That's bad. If you're asking that question, you might not want to be in the CIA. What? Why don't we just tell them what we're doing? That way we can be friendlier. Finally, though, the unfortunate part is this. On May 1st, 1960, May Day, ironically, socialist holiday, and, if you're curious, 43 years before my daughter was born. May 1st.
What year?
1960. The U-2 spy, we didn't have one. One of the U-2 spy planes was shot down over Soviet territory. And our pilot, Francis Gary Powers, P.O. Powers, like Max Powers, regular Powers, was captured. The plane was shot down, he parachuted, he was captured, he was held as a hostage for a while. Now, the worst part about this, though, was that after the kitchen debates, it looked like our relationship to the Soviet Union was getting a little bit better. In fact, Eisenhower and Khrushchev agreed to meet in Berlin for the first ever great summit between the two sides. And then this happened. And it wrecked it all. Now, if you're a conspiracy theorist, Eisenhower had to admit this was going to... I'm sorry, they were going to meet in Paris. Eisenhower suspended flights, but Khrushchev demanded an apology, an official national apology. And Eisenhower was not going to apologize for spying on his enemy. So he refused, so the Paris summit was over. And this is huge. This is the end of the possibility of American relations in the late 50s, early 60s. And it's going to get even more tense now. Now we're going to get like the Bay of Pigs stuff. We're going to get Cuban Missile Crisis. It's going to get even more tense. If you're a conspiracy theorist, though, you do know who assassinated President Kennedy, right? Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald was an ex-Marine who defected to the Soviet Union. He defected, and not long after he defected, and it's by all accounts when he defected. If you're an American former military person, you defect to the Soviet Union, the government's going to take you, and they're going to treat you probably very nicely and want to know everything you know. And this spy plane was shot down not long after Lee Harvey Oswald defected. We have no evidence that Lee Harvey Oswald had any kind of information that would lead to the technology would bring this thing down. But if you're a conspiracy theorist, there you go.
They shot it down.
Do what?
He shot it down with his rifle.
He took a 22. Now, if you watch one of the coolest president movies ever, it's called JFK. It came out in 91. Have you seen it, Hannah? It's long. It's got every famous actor ever in the late 80s and early 90s is in this. Ever. The cast is huge. And it was done by Oliver Stone, who was a conspiracy theorist, and he sort of lays out his conspiracy theory. A lot of that's not true when he sort of laid it out, but it's convincing. But when you have to make up your own facts, it's easier to be convincing. Which is why I think my history is very convincing, because I don't even know that half of the stuff actually happened. All right.
I don't even know anything you teach us.
Good.
None of this happened.
No, this is all Eisenhower, not a real guy.
Yeah.
I just made up a weird name to make it sound like it was more believable, because if all my historical actors are Smith or Johnson, it gets confusing.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Soviet Union doesn't even exist.
All right. Now let's talk about foreign policy. Remember I said that America was going to become an active participant in the overthrowing or the moving of leaders that are, I wouldn't say loyal, but are pro-American at least, or have some sympathies to our cause. CIA will start doing this, and I will have a map to show you, I hope.
You drew your maps,
Do what?
You drew all your maps.
He's not that talented. He had somebody else wrong for him.
Can you stop the things?
I'm just telling you this.
I thought he was